today we have Mr. Deepu Krishna with us, who is here for a session on the career in teaching in the legal fraternity. And to introduce him, I have already told you guys that he's currently a director at student engagement in IFF, and he has also been a part of Jindal Global University, Karnavati University, and he hails from NLIU Bhopal. So, just another fact that he was my inspiration behind taking CLAT as a career, as an exam to attempt and and to enter the legal fraternity as a whole. So, the only person who inspired me सबसे ज़्यादा was Deepu sir himself. So, welcome, sir. Welcome in our whole small world. So, sir, you can continue.
Okay, thank you for that sweet introduction, Prakhar. And the last line is something which is very close to my heart, always. One of the reasons why I joined teaching was also the same, that I could inspire and I can, tell students that how and why they should do law, from where they should do law. And that has been something which has been, you can say, the force behind me continuing teaching from one level to another level, and that just keeps on improving. So yeah, affecting lives and also mentoring them and also seeing to it that you see lives getting converted. For example, just few days back, I had a student calling me late night, and I picked up the phone and he introduced himself as a magistrate. I did not know he was my student, but he said, I'm magistrate this. And I thought there is another case which has been filed on me. Why? Because I involve myself in a lot of kind of litigation where I throw notices at people for ASCII, etc. So I hope all of you know about ASCII. It's Advertising Standard Council of India, where frivolous ads, etc. are complained by me. I thought something like that, but then I got to know that he's one of my own students, and then he referred to him like magistrate, and he's become magistrate and he's getting elevated. So that is something which has prompted me to remain in this field. Now, when Prakhar approached me and said that, sir, you have to speak about teaching and law, I was very, very happy about it, because I have taken sessions on careers in law like multiple times, around 1,000 times around the country, and webinars, I have lost count. From the time pandemic has been declared, I have been taking these sessions for so long, but never have I taken teaching for teaching specifically. So I was very thrilled about it when he said that. I was like, yes, that is something I want to enlighten about. And often I also meet some of my students who are currently teaching at university level and also teaching at law prep, where they have approached me and they said that you have been an inspiration, etc. So I feel very happy when I hear these things, that I was able to inspire people to choose a field which was often seen as something where people never thought about joining. Now, why teaching? How did it happen to me? Is basically a story which I would want to discuss here, because even when I was teaching, Prakhar will agree with me that I'm a good storyteller. So if you want to be a teacher, one thing you have to be very clear about is you have to be a good storyteller. So from childhood, I had that in me. So my mom recalls that whenever there was some incident in family, I would go ahead and narrate it in the most fashionable manner, remembering all the facts. So probably that is something which I had in me, but they always thought that I may become a lawyer, but they were never supportive of the same. So I had to fight a long battle, like many of you might be fighting right now, about how to, about joining a law school. So law school, I never had a clue that I'm gonna be a teacher. But though I remember sitting in those classes, I was a LLB. Okay, so for me, the full form of LLB is lovers of last bench. So even in law school, I was always a LLB. I used to sit at the last bench, and I was an observer. So I used to observe whatever is happening inside the class. So I remember a student, a batchmate of mine from Bihar, a state often ridiculed for being, one of the most uncivilized in our countries. But believe me, one of the best brains come from Bihar. And one of those evidences was something which I found when I was sitting at the last bench, because some of my friends who were in the last bench were also from Bihar. So a teacher reprimanded us, and she said that you're always going to be at the back because you keep sitting at the back. Now this guy gave a very good answer to the madam, to the professor, where he said that, ma'am, look, the student who's sitting at the front is only watching you. Okay, he's only hearing you, and he's only adapting to what you are saying. His version or his view of life is connected to what you are saying. But we at the back are able to see everyone inside this class. So when you are speaking, we are able to see even the reactions of people, who's studying, who's not studying. When an example is being given, how girls are reacting and what is the reaction of the boys, everything is being seen by us. So we are better than anyone else because we are seeing things from a wider perspective rather than those who are sitting in the front and having a narrow perspective. I think I took that message very very dearly to my heart, and I said, "Wow, that was something good." And believe me, it had a larger level of truth in it, and it had a kind of a calling for us, where it was true because teaching is also about observation. Because I'm talking about not those teachers who would rather come and just take a session and leave. For them, it's like a syllabus. I have always been a teacher who would go into the classroom and would try to see to it that the at least minimum 99% of the class understands what I'm delivering. So when I say 99% of the class that I'm delivering, my idea has been always very, very clear that I should make the class in such a manner that a student who often is referred to as the weakest student in the class is also able to understand me, because I know the brightest student, it's very easy for him to understand things because he's already bright, right? He's someone who has read and who has come down to the class well prepared. So to teach him, I have to be at that level where he is able to grasp things better. But there would be one student for whom I have to work very hard. You know who? Because he is being labeled as someone who doesn't understand concepts very clearly. And that is something I learned sitting at the last bench, because there were concepts which were never clear to me. Because probably I don't want to demean any faculty who have taught me. In fact, some of the best minds have taught me, including Professor Moolchand Sharma, Professor Madhav Menon, etc. And that is what made them stand out, believe me. Because Professor Moolchand Sharma, I remember, he taught us feminist jurisprudence using a movie called as Choker Bali. The high point of the movie was that Aishwarya Rai was in that movie. So all the boys were in 100% attendance because, Aishwarya Rai is in that movie. The more high point in the movie was, teenagers back then we were, or not teenagers, we were in our 20s, but then we had the mind of teenagers. It was like Aishwarya Rai is in a attire where she's not wearing a blouse, and she's in a widow's attire where she's just wearing a sari. Oh, but you know what? By the time the class ended, most of the boys inside class had become men and they were crying. Because in that class, I remember the kind of teaching which Professor Moolchand Sharma did was he made us watch the movie, and it was not like it was running throughout the class. He paused it after every scene. He used to mention a jurist and tell us that why feminist jurisprudence. What is the need for feminism? What is positive feminism? And that is where I learned the best lessons of my life. Probably I was that weak student sitting at the last bench who wanted things to be so crystallized and presented to me. And in the class, even the topper got every knowledge about the same. So a kind of a crystallization was happening right inside that class, which I never noticed. I never noticed that this is happening to me, but I could understand that there was this one faculty who would come, who would use a lot of legal jargons, and who would just walk away. And then we'll be like, what just hit us? Was it a bazooka? And we won't understand anything. And then we would resort to our seniors, or else we would resort to our friends who used to make notes to explain us everything about the same. So that is how we used to teach. We used to study in other faculties. But a professor like Moolchand Sharma, a professor like V.S. Rekhi, a professor like Madhav Menon would go to that extent that they will make the class so interesting that it was fun. Even if I'm unwell, even if these people never took attendance, they were like, we'll give you attendance, don't worry. You only come to the class if you're interested. And we used to go inside those classes. And believe me, I'm a professor like that today. And that's the inspiration behind all that teaching which I have at the back of me. It's like more than 15 years of teaching across different platforms. So how did teaching happen to me? And that is a very interesting question. Uh, I remember I never thought I'll become a teacher. Rather, I was campus placed into Singhani and Partners, and I was doing good. I was naive, I remember. I did a lot of mistakes for which I was getting reprimanded, but my senior, Advocate Dua, I was working under him, and for corporate, I was working with Deepak, sir, I remember. And they both used to like me. As in during the evening meetings, they used to tell me that you have, you're gonna be a good lawyer because you present things well, blah blah blah. So that was the high point of it. But then Saturdays and Sundays were often, holidays for us, weekends. So most of the people would go and party. I was also a part of it. But then, how much are you going to party, right? There came a time when I started getting bored. That is exactly when I met Sachin Malhan, one of those guys whom I had met during my law school life, and he was the one who created the product called as LST, which is now today a big hit. Law school tutorials. He created that, and he invited me to join LST, and he said, "Why don't you come? Because you start taking part-time classes." So I started taking part-time classes in Delhi, in and around Delhi. CP was my debut class, I remember, Career Launchers CP Center. And something positive was happening, those interactions with kids. And believe me, I had no prior experience of teaching, but then TOTS was something I had to teach. Contract was something which I had to teach. And I remember when I used to go and teach, I used to teach them, and then I used to share with them my experiences. There were experiences of an invitation to offer being drafted by me for NHAI. I think Prakhar would remember this. This is one of my most famous examples where I used to tell them that how a road was being built and the entire issue which popped up and how out of court it got settled. So those examples were something where I'll tell you frankly, I was not teaching. I was conversing with kids. I was making them understand those things, and I was doing it like a part time. But then something which I was able to receive was a kind of you would say a kind of a feeling at the end of every class. In the weekend when Sunday hit, I was ready for Monday, but my Saturdays and Sundays were very good. After the class, I would go out with students. I'll have coffee with them. We'll go around, hang out together. It was fun. And that kept me young because I was more or less updated about everything new. Students used to share. I remember during those times, torrents were a big thing. Torrents. So they would come and share with me the latest movies. They'll tell me what is in, what is going on, the latest songs. So I was more of a kind of a buddy to them, and that is something which I really liked. And I was like, yeah, this is something which I want to do in my life. Then I remember something really, really remarkable happened. Students who are very close to me know this, that how I quit litigation and what had actually happened. I am a very emotional guy, I get emotional very quick. So I remember there was this case which was happening at National Consumer Redressal Forum where I had to be present. And I had to present this case from the perspective of RCI. RCI stands for Resort Condominium of India, where it's like a CBSE body. Like CBSE will go and affiliate schools, RCI used to affiliate resorts. So it's just an affiliate body. And RCI was our client. So there was this one woman who had lost all her money. She was single, she was living single. And after retirement, she wanted to go through to various resorts around the world. And she was investing in that resort. And all of a sudden, the resort went kaput. It's like, it went bankrupt. And it was absconding. So she filed a case against RCI also, that RCI should return back her money. So I had a very simple thing to do. I had to go and mention that we are just a affiliate body. We just give affiliations and we do not have any liability in that case. So my senior was very happy with me. He said, you go ahead and present yourself. You have all the power to do that. Go ahead. I was presenting myself also. It's not like I was getting passovers. I went to the court. I explained it very well. And I could see appreciations also in form of, because we won the case, because the court itself said that yes, there is no cause of action against them. And when I came out, there were seniors, my own seniors in the court premises, who came and shook hands with me and said, "Very good, well done." You know what happened? The female in question, who lost all the money, she came, she grabbed me by my collar, and she gave me two tight slaps publicly, tack, tack. And I was like, my goodness. And she started cursing me very badly. She said, you know, you're gone. All your money is also going to go like this, blah, blah, blah. And, again, people were there. I was defended very well. And there were advocates also were charging, who started hitting her. And I don't know, as in it all went berserk. And I went back home. I cried. I cried like a small baby. I said, Yari, this is insult. My senior called me up and he said, you need to come to the office. I said, no, sir, this is very bad, blah, blah, blah. So then slowly I was able to get down to the level from where I was thinking that, okay, this is part and parcel of our profession. But then 2 weeks after, the law entrance results were declared. Then CLAT was, I'm telling you a story about 2006 when CLAT was not there. So law entrance examination results were declared, NLS, NALSAR, NUJS, and almost most of the toppers were my students. And when I went to the CL campus, I was feeling like, I would say, a movie star. That's how I was being celebrated. I remember students carrying me on their back, bringing me down, dhols and nagaras. Oh my goodness. It was the highest point of my life. I was so much wanted. I remember I was even invited to a state minister's house for dinner, where the state minister told me specifically that thanks, that you made my kid inspired and he studied so hard that without any kind of influence, he cracked this examination and he's into a law school. Believe me, things were moving in such a direction. And I was reading Paulo Coelho also during those times. So I was so inspired. I was like, man, what am I doing? I think I'm a good teacher. I'm changing lives here, and there I'm getting slapped. So I took a decision, and right at that time, Sachin, as in the one who owned LST, he made me an offer and he said, why don't you join us? Because you're really doing good. And during those times, I even remember I used to give them a lot of ideas about how we can market, how we can inspire students to take up law. I used to take sessions also during those times. Back then in 2006, I was taking online sessions, and then because LST was very advanced, they used to take HCL, studio for rent, and sitting there, I was taking sessions of students in Kolkata, in Bangalore. I used to take sessions like that. And that was becoming a hit, for which they gave me this offer, which I could not reject. I quit my litigation. And when I was doing that, I remember my senior told me that you're committing the worst mistake of your life. You will never be known ever like the way you would have been known in litigation. This is the worst mistake of your life. Yeah, it took a lot of courage, but then I said, no, sir, let me go, because I think this is something which I want to do in my life. And I walked out. And the rest is history. I remember being one of the best. I remember cracking results after results, quitting again Career Launcher, coming back to my city, my hometown, because of my father's health. I had to go back to Bhopal, finding my own product. And when I was leaving Career Launcher, I remember there was someone who told me that don't leave, because with Career Launcher, you're always going to have All India Rank 1 with you. But in a small city called as Bhopal, you're never going to have that, because never is a topper going to come from Bhopal or Madhya Pradesh. And that hit me hard here. I said, no, that is not how it is going to be. I'm 100% sure one day someone is going to come out, and a teacher like me can do that. And I went back to Bhopal in the year, I guess, 2009. And from 2009 to 15, there was kind of a penance which I did. I need a topper, and it finally happened. And I always wanted to be in teaching. Believe me, I'm not a businessman. I never have a business model. I'm very poor at Excel. I don't know how to market things, but things come naturally to me. I am more into, I'm a guy with a lot of ideas. So even with Career Launcher, I remember there were some of my ideas which really worked very good. And that is what I was. So my idea was, in the market, I had a very small pie, but I was very clear. Whoever is with me should do good, and I should be able to give the max out of it. And I always believed in academics. That is what I kept on doing. And with the power of that teaching in 2015, I had the pleasure of teaching and mentoring Akash Jain, and he was All India Rank 1. And at that very moment, I said, enough is enough. I want to only teach. I cannot keep on balancing my balance sheet. I cannot keep on taking pangas with people, because coaching industry has a gray shade also. So I said, I'm going to quit it. I'm not going to do anything. My only sole purpose in life is to go ahead and teach. And till that day, there were so many people who were approaching me to become a teacher. Almost many universities. In fact, my own alma mater, there were professors who used to come and tell me that, do your LLM, please go ahead and do your LLM, because you have a teacher in you. And I remember in the year 2015 itself, I did my LLM and I received a gold medal, because with the teaching experience which I had started understanding law better, and that is what teaching does to you. Believe me, that is what teaching does to you, because it requires you to be inquisitive. It requires you to dig deeper, and that's what the students make you do. They make you research. They make you pull out the most different facet of what you are teaching, and that makes you always up to date. And as my seniors and my batchmates say, that you never really graduated out of your law school, which is absolutely true, because I'm still in touch with whatever is happening in law school. I mean, Prakhar and I met because of this, right? So that's exactly how teaching happened to me. And teaching has been something which is a kind of a passion for me. And there are people who tell me that teaching does not pay you well. I am one of those who would go to the extent of saying, no, that is absolutely wrong. Specifically in teaching law, you can even make money provided you know how to build yourself as a brand. Now, building yourself as a brand is not something which you have to do with a lot of Instagram followers or a lot of punchlines, etc. on internet. It is something for which you have to read a lot. You have to be in touch with whatever is happening. You have to know that if there is a very difficult concept in law, anything which or a judgment of Supreme Court which has come up, you should know how to explain it in the most simplest manner. So I give you this cue. It's very simple. Take a cue from what I said in the beginning. Prepare the class for the student who has the most difficulty in understanding. And people talk about bad students, good students. I'm not someone who ever classifies like that. Even in a class, I would remember the names of all my students. You give me 3 weeks, I'll remember even a class of 120 students, each student, and I will even go to the extent of knowing that what are the special needs of students. That's the kind of scrutiny and that's the kind of involvement I have with my students. And take pains to realize that every kid who's sitting inside the class is different. If you do that, you'll be a very good teacher. And I read about it also, because I keep reading about the professors at Harvard, the professors at MIT, what they do, how are they ranked as the best. You go to Quora and type, who are the best teachers. Very hardly you would see law professors, being mentioned somewhere. There's only one guy with whom I've often often heard about, and his name is Professor Michael Sandel. And you should attend his lecture. His lectures are available on YouTube for free. If you attend his classes, you would know that why he is one amongst the best, because in such simple mechanism and using such simple examples, he explains justice. I remember justice being taught to me in one of the most sophisticated manners, and I even forgot the meaning of the word justice. Then Michael Sanders' lecture is something which made me realize what justice is all about, right? So a teacher is someone who should not be given a pat on his back when he has best students inside his class. A teacher should be someone who deserves a pat and who becomes legendary when he's able to improve the lives of students who are in the language of the common man below average, or how they call students as someone who doesn't understand things or who's not able to understand things. That's what teacher has to do, and that exactly is also the high point of this career. You go back home and sleep with the satisfaction that you are changing lives, you are creating lives, you are bringing a huge change in the lives of students. And yes, when I say this, equally, I should also tell each one of you that I have a lot of students who have a great animosity with me also, because when you're teaching, you also have a school of thought. So I have a school of thought which they don't agree to. They argue with me. They become very angry with me. Some of them come and discuss with me things. Some of them have even left talking to me. That is also one other side of it. Things like this happen, but then I respect their side also, because that is part and parcel of the profession. Okay, so Prakhar, I guess I've winded up my talk the way I always do. That was a story which I wanted to discuss. Now I think if there are questions and etc., we can go to that.
Okay, so that was quite nice to hear your story. Could you please tell us more about your college days, your days in NLIU?
That is nostalgia. College days, I remember the very first class I often remember. It was legal methods class. We all were very interested because that was our first class, and where we were about to be introduced to what law school life is all about. And I remember sitting in the class, and Professor V.S. Rekhi, our founding vice chancellor, he walks into the room and he says, stay here only if you can work like a horse and live a life of a hermit. If you cannot do that, please get out, take your fees, full refund, and leave this place. We thought he's joking, but he was damn right. Because with each day at law school, we realized that yes, we are cutting ourselves off from the society. Though we are learning more about them, but call it family functions, etc., they were all cut. We were into a totally different grid where our life was dictated by the wants of the course. Like there were deadlines which now had a totally different meaning. Friends were totally different. Rather, we were all professionals because we knew at the end of it, it's all about placement. And believe me, life was very sorted. I hated my law school life when I was in the third year. I even want to confess here that I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit and I want to run away. I was at what a sick place this is. There are no good friends. All my friends are in commerce college. I would rather go and spend my time with them. But then when I graduated, I learned that that is how life is. And it prepared me well for the life ahead. And my friends who were in commerce colleges, they learned it the very hard manner when they joined the profession. So it made me tougher. Each year there was something different which was happening with me. I very recently took a lecture which is there on YouTube where I talked about law school life. Each year I explained that how it changed me. That's exactly how it changed me. But believe me, it made me a lot mature, because this is something which I have heard a lot from my friends who told me that you were changing. And I never had an idea that, I'm changing. It made me a lot mature because now the perspective which I had was very different. Because the kind of course which law is, it changes you completely. You go to a moot court, you are standing in front of your senior and you are trying to prove your case, and he lambasts you. He lambasts you top right center. If you are egoistic, you'll feel very bad. You'll walk out, you'll say, to hell with him, who is he? But if you are someone who knows that these things are important, you will know that how to be persuasive, how to be assertive. Now, these were the things which I don't think anywhere else in any other course they are teaching anyone, but we were learning that. So even when we were taking a class, for instance, and if there is a rude student who's standing there who had a bad day at home and who's come with a lot of questions, is asking you questions, you don't lose it. On the other hand, you are able to tackle him properly. You are able to answer to the worst of his queries, even if they are not connected to the book or to the thing which you are teaching inside the class. You're able to answer. Likewise, if you are in practice also, don't expect the judge to be all humanely to you because you're a new lawyer. He might also ask you questions which might hit you very hard, but law school and the life there teaches you many things. And all these are very practical. In my law school days, I remember most of the time either were spent playing with my friends or else in the library. These were the two things which I used to do. Till third year, I was a day scholar, and then I took up hostel because I could understand that the best things in life are happening in the hostel. So I switched myself and I went to the hostel. I learned that there in hostel life, that hostel life actually, like the famous star stand-up comedian Bassi says, if you have not gone to hostel, you are losing a major part of your life, because that's exactly where you're going to be taught that what life is outside home. And I experienced that also, and that is one of the most memorable parts of my life, where from morning till evening we did not study. We used to go to the class, come back, discuss those things, and it was from 8:30 in the night that studies actually started. We'll go to one room, everyone will throng into that room, and we would discuss things rather than cram up or rot learn things. We will discuss about what is happening in and around the country, how how the legal system should be. I remember we also used to criticize about government policies, but we often used to come out with solutions to those policies also. For the first time in my life, post graduating from school, I was discussing about budget, the union budget, that what is a socialist budget, what is a capitalist budget. There were people who were divided. So that is exactly what I said, that we were maturing. And that progression is something which now, when I sit and think, had happened to me. Professors were the ones who gave these things a lot of impetus, because they would come, they would profess, and they would leave. But then they always expect you to get back to them, because their job is not to give you personal attention in law schools. Rather, their job is to ignite, because they profess, they do not teach. That is what one of my great professor friends says, that a professor is to profess and he's not to teach. He would profess, he will ignite that, and he'll leave. It's upon you to follow it up, write an article, write a publication. So these were those things which we actually read about. During our time, there were no sports fest, etc. But we created our own sports fest. With seniors, the kind of relationship which we had was of love and hate, I remember. So with your just seniors, you never have good relationships. I think that still stays in law schools. It's 1 year ahead of yours. As in, if you are in the second year, you will be very pally with the fourth year, never with the third year. So that is something which I've seen in all law schools. Even in the law school where I'm teaching, I've seen that equation remains. And I remember getting into a brawl for the first time in my life in law school with our just seniors. Very bad brawl. But then today we are all great friends. If a moot court is happening, I'll reach out to them and say, come on, you need to be a judge, and they'll be always ready. If I'm in Delhi, I will give them a call, they'll all come running and they'll meet. So that's the aura of law school, because we are so less in number, unlike in engineering colleges. We are very well knit, and that society is something which does not get restricted to only your law school. Like, I have great friends from NALSAR, I have great friends from NUJS and NLS also, who are still friends with me. So that's law school all about.
Okay, sir. So we received a question from one of our students. Okay, can this teaching be a side profession or something? We pursue something else, like for example, litigation, and we do this part time. And can we excel in the same if we are pursuing it part time?
Absolutely, that can be done. That can be done, because I'll tell you, teaching will only support whatever you are doing as main, if you want to consider it as part time. Because when you are teaching, you have to be updated with whatever is happening. If you are in law, you have to be updated with whatever are the recent case laws. You have to be updated with the government policies, whatever is happening. You have to be even updated with what the Law Commission of India is thinking, how it might guide, what Niti Aayog is thinking. When you are in touch with all these things, whatever you are doing, be it litigation, you're a corporate lawyer, you are into social service, whatever you are doing, it's only going to help you. So part-time teaching is something which 100% I do support if you don't want to join it full-time. But believe me, teaching is so contagious and it's so addictive. It's very hard to make sure that it is only part-time, like it happened with me. If you are too good at it, the students attract you so much into that profession that you'll leave everything and then go ahead and do teaching full-time.
Also, sir, what is the scalability in this particular profession? As in, when I talk about international exposure, and suppose a teacher is starting right now, and what is the scale to which he can extend his particular career?
Okay. So before pandemic, it was a bit difficult. It was very difficult to reach out to international universities and make sure that you are able to go ahead and reach out to them. But believe me, sitting here today, I have taken and attended conferences and webinars from, say, Harvard, Stanford. Why has it happened? Because when the pandemic happened, everyone wanted to go ahead and reach out and do this remote learning. Because of which, now what I have seen is it's very easy for you to get through. Now, if you are asking me to go ahead and teach in those universities, there are certain parameters which you have to meet. Meeting those parameters, it is not very difficult. But again, if you're asking me about scalability, specifically international universities, they are not like Indian universities. They will not go by the number of degrees which you have. They will not go by, as in, they will not go by which examination you have cleared, like a net or something. They would rather go by the number of publications you have done, the number of researches you have done, and yes, how skilled you are when it comes to teaching per se. As in, how are you able to relate with the kid better? In case if you can do these things better, if you are good at it, even the scalability in that particular area is something which you can think about. But always mind it, law is something which is connected always. Like the law which you are learning in India, through, as in, when I'm doing my PhD, and I'm not restricting myself to only Indian laws. What I'm trying to do is I'm reading multiple laws from different countries, and this is something which they appreciate. And it's not like if you have just read Indian laws, so they are not going to accept you. What they like about it is, if you know Indian laws, if you are doing something which is multidisciplinary in nature, for example, law and business, law and anthropology, law and psychology, law and, for instance, liberal arts, any specific field of liberal arts. If you're doing something like that, the scalability of teaching is much higher, and the kind of expression which you would get from foreign universities is much higher. I remember attending this course from Harvard, which was on US public policy, and I had a host of people attending it from all over the world, and also from our neighbors, China, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And whenever a task was given to us, I would often compare it with our system in India, because while doing that course, I also came to know that religion as a tool is not used just in India during elections. Even in US elections, religion plays a very important role. So it was quite natural for me to make submissions from my country and how religion plays a major role in it. And believe me, I used to be mocked by neighbors, specifically from the Chinese. But at the end of it, when the marks were declared, I got the highest. And even the professor was very happy, because he said, "This is what we want. We want you to think and appreciate and also criticize things and also make sense out of it, because studying is not where you can look at things in watertight compartments. You have to cross the boundaries, and you have to understand the legal systems beyond that, and policy making. And being teachers, you cannot be partisans. You have to take a middle meaning to everything, and you have to understand those things. And that is something I liked about those universities, unlike in our country, where we are very stringent, we are very restrictive about what we do, about the kind of researches we do. So in PhD, when I enrolled in PhD, I often take interest in what others are also doing. I'm so depressed by the fact that most of the PhD topics are very restrictive and very simple. And even people who are already done their PhD, they do not want the student to think beyond the obvious and do something very constructive. They also want the questions for PhD not to be very philosophical, very simple, where even they can guide you. That's the kind of thing which has to break out. Now I appreciate my my ex place of employment, Jindal Global Law School, where yes, where they do encourage such kind of thought, and they are researching on such kind of area, and probably that's why they are global. That's the same kind of atmosphere which we are trying to build inside this campus at IFM also, where we are compelling students to go ahead and think beyond the obvious and think about those things which will matter, say, 10 years down the line. For example, let's think about how the marketing laws would be there in the metaverse, because people have already started going into metaverse. They're thinking about creating a new universe now, right? So how the laws are going to be there? I hope all of you are aware that there is already the worst crime of humanity called as rape that has already happened in metaverse. A woman has complained about the same, and now Meta, as in the owners, have made a 6 feet rule, and they're coming out with that. But it has to be made by us, the lawyers, right? We are the ones who object always when science does something really new. For a scientist, when he discovered that dinosaurs can be made again, they said Eureka. They were like, wow, we'll create a Jurassic Park. But it were us, the social scientists, the lawyers, etc., who objected to it and who said, no, stop it. No, you cannot do that. That's something which may go against the civilization rules which we have created of late, right? So that's how it is.
Okay, sir. So another question is, how has your own teaching journey evolved from your day one to currently to your current part?
Oh, that's a pretty difficult question for me. I don't know. My students would be in a better position to answer the same, but I can say that yes, every day I'm evolving. I've been under some great, leaders from education. I started my career with Professor Padmanabha Ramanujan. He's called as Professor Paddy. He is currently the dean at IFM Law School, and I have always tried to compare myself with his teaching, because what the manner in which he takes teaching to new heights is something which inspired me to step into academics. Because I remember when I was in law prep, he used to come and represent Jindal Global Law School, and where he will never talk about the law school, rather he would come and he would discuss points of law. So I remember he discussed the movie Life of Pi, and then he brought that story to Dudley versus Stevenson, the principle of necessity, and the case, how it was decided and what is necessity. And he actually, he kind of encouraged the students to think beyond the obvious. And that was the kind of teacher that I wanted always to be. And that is something where I went to him and I asked that, sir, how do you do that? And he said, I keep on reading. And he referred 6 to 7 books to me, that this is what I do. And I think you should also read. And that's where this journey started. So if you ask me how much have I evolved, I would say I learned from the best. I have attended lectures from the, from great faculties like Professor Madhav Menon, Professor Mulchan Sharma, Professor Suryadev, Professor V.S. Rekhi. What all best things I learned from them, I have adapted. And then there is my own style also, which I said it's more of like a storytelling which I do. Further, also Professor C. Rajkumar, the Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University. When I was with him, I understood that it's because as a university, that university is being run by a lawyer, but he works like a CEO. That's exactly how he will do his teaching also. He will do everything, and we call him a guy who's 360 degree. He's always in control of everything. And when you work with people like this, you'll surely evolve. Inside that campus, I have many other friends also who helped me to grow. Professor Khagesh Gautam, who's one of the best names in India right now. He's someone who's trying to do the impossible. He's trying to get marijuana legalized in India. Now, when I say that, many people would frown and say, what? But you should attend his lectures on YouTube. It's recorded there. You should see that what he says is right now, what the government is doing is it's not talking about it, and it's in the gray market, and it's just ruining lives. While on the other hand, if you legalize it and you create a regulation relating to it, you can control it better. You can use it for its positives. Now, this kind of thinking is something which I think has induced a better teacher in me. And I'm still evolving. And questions, finding their answers is something which keeps you always on your toes. I go into the classroom, I start teaching. I love it when a student will ask me a question, the answer to which I don't know. And the moment that happens, you know what I do? I would just there confess the fact that I don't know the answer. And I tell him that I'll come back to it. I go back and I won't sleep that night unless I have not found the answer to it. And I think that is what is helping me evolve myself. And day in, day out, that is something. And then, as I said, I do a lot of courses which are now available online. New things, new tactics, new ways of teaching is something which I'm keeping myself updated with. So that has only helped me to get involved.
Okay, sir. Also, most of the students in this particular webinar here are first year students. So,
Oh,
any tips you would love to give them, or anything which they should do in order to shape their career in the teaching line itself?
okay. Since you're in the first year, I would say don't take much pressure, because when you're in the first year, many people like with me would come and create new parameters for you. So don't be under any kind of pressure. On the on the other hand, try discovering yourself in the very first year. When I say discovering yourself, try understanding what are your strengths and weaknesses. We all have that. Okay. If you ask me, my weakness was I did not belong to a family of lawyers. My dad was an engineer, so I knew that this is something which as a weakness I have. And yes, I was the third youngest guy in my batch because during my time there was no age barriers. Anyone could. So I had graduates studying with me in the first year who had already done BA in some sphere. They cracked the entrance examination, and they were sitting with us and reading. This I realized only in the third year because I was never in the top 20% of my class. And I thought, man, what am I doing with myself? But then when I slowly discovered myself, I kind of had a confidence that you are with the best minds, right? They all have cracked this examination where you were also just another candidate. Now, if you're competing with these guys, understand that you should you should increase your limitations, increase your strengths with each year, and try to restrict your weaknesses with each year. And that can only be done if you discover yourself. Try talking to yourself. That is exactly what I used to do. I remember, because at times I would get very disheartened. I'll go back and I say, what am I doing? You guys are like, all set. I remember during my time there was no law coaching to tell us this word. I'm going to tell you the word which really confused me. In the class, the word precedent was said often. And with me, there was a group of students whom it took 3 weeks to understand that the word used here is not precedent. Because whenever the faculty was saying precedent, we thought it's president. And we were like, ये president कहाँ से घुस रहा है भाई? Why are they saying? Because the professor thought that we all know, and there were people inside the class who gave him the reaction that yes, we know, because they were already graduates. So we had a lot of such kind of issues in the first year where we thought that galat jagah aa gaye hain, we are in the wrong place. But slowly we started understanding that no, this is not how it is. We can still survive. Seek seek a lot of help from your seniors, good seniors. There can be good seniors and bad seniors also, because people who would say, don't read, life is like that, just enjoy. Never take that advice, because in law school it's all about how much you study, how much you are able to hone your skills. I again repeat, skills. You have to hone your skills. You have to make sure that your communication skills, your managerial skills, and your critical reasoning skills are tops. You're those kind of students who, though are not in the 20%, but at least are working on these three skills, because once you graduate, it's these three skills which are going to help you. Make sure that you are able to publish papers. Make sure you are able to participate in as many moods, as many ADR competitions, as many things which gets you exposure. Because it's exactly there where you are able to put practically these things. Come on, we have to understand one thing, that we are not doing an MBA, we are not doing a BB or any other course where there is always scope of learning, getting into the industry, and then slowly getting promoted one by one. In a profession, it's all about inside law school, what you are learning, you are able to practically learn it with it. That's why internships are there. So even in your internships, be very clear about it, that you are able to learn, do internship with the best of the best, impress them in such a manner that they call you again back for your internship, saying that the student was good, let us see him as. And I want to tell you something, because I also take care of placements in my college. Nowadays firms have also started believing very firmly that let's take interns on regular basis and then convert them into junior associates and place them. They're doing it because every fall or every year, when they take new people, they're not able to decide, because only one internship will not help you. You have to understand that. So now the firms are also changing this policy. If they're not calling you back, that means your first internship, you really messed it up. You did not do it well, right? So because you are in the first year, I'm giving you these kind of advices, that from the very first year, be very, very clear that wherever you are going to intern, try to give a good performance. Now, when I say try to give good performance, it means increase your gravity. The gravity word in Hindi means Gurutvaakarshan. That means the ability to learn and grasp. So in firm, people will not teach you unless until you don't move ahead and say, sir, please give me some research points, let me research. That one question will impress them. And then they'll give you. In that, try to impress them. Learn research in law school. That is one of the most important thing, because that's the first step towards the legal world. When you are in the first year, please go and attend some courses, some the professors or your seniors who are doing research. Sit with them, learn how publications are done, and make sure and set your targets. By the time I'm in the third year, these are the topics on which I have to research, and do those kind of activities. First year gives you a good idea, and again, don't lose hope. I again repeat, because most of the time when we are in the second or the third year, we start feeling that we are slowly losing out. And I have lost a lot of friends, because most of them, when they reached third year, they lost hope and they said, this is not what I signed up for. And it's still happening in law school. I'll tell you, one of the basic reasons is the entrance examination process now does not give you an idea about what life in law school is. And that's what most of my lectures nowadays is. When I interact with law aspirants, I tell them, I teach them that how law is taught. I tell them that law is all about your English and your interpretation skills. Because law schools, they don't teach you in Hindi, they teach you in English. You have to know that one small article, Article 21 of the Constitution, which is just two lines, which says, no person shall be deprived of his life and personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. These two lines gave birth to so many rights of ours. How did the court, or how did the lawyers like Nani Palkiwala, Soli Swarabji help the court to come out with so many meanings? That skill is something which you have to acquire. So from the very first year, you have to understand, because since now you are already into law school, I tell them that if you don't have this skill, leave, quit the coaching, go and do something else. Because I have met students in the first year from NLS Bangalore to NLU Jodhpur. I have met students who are in NLS Bangalore, think they were in the top list, right? And they come and tell me that now I think I have committed a wrong, because I thought my memory skills are very good and they'll be put to use, because in the examination I was on the top list. I memorized all the general studies questions and I could perform well, and here I am. See, I'm not scoring well, because the need in law school is very different to what I have. You're getting it? So from this day, you have to be very clear, since you're in the first year, that it's all about these two things. It's about being inquisitive. It's about being inquiring. It's about making sure that your interpretation skills, your communication skills, and the way you are able to comprehend a problem are good. And you can only do it by referring to various case laws, reading whatever is happening in the socio-legal arena in the world, and not just restricting yourself to a specific field and saying, okay, I'll only read this. No. You may have your own area of interest as well. You can go ahead and do the same. Now the world is also changing. The kind of students who are going to graduate with you are also going to change. For example, there is this university called as Vijay Bhumi University, which is opened in Mumbai, Karjat. It's a sister concern of ours. How are they teaching law there? It's very interesting. It's India's first liberal professional university, where a student in the first year can do law. With that, he can also study business. With that, he can also study data analysis. With that, he can also study music, and music from True School of Music. With that, he can also study some subjects of engineering. So by the time he's in the second year, if he discovers, that's in tow with the national education policy, the new education policy. When he's in the second year, if he understands that, okay, law is not my call, he can go for only music. If he says, okay, this is not, law is not for me, he can go for data analytics. That's the kind of new students who are coming. The opposite can also happen. A student who's very good in data analysis can take a law degree. He can approach a law firm and say, okay, I'll do data analytics for you with the power of law. Think about it. Will he be preferred or will you be preferred? If the firm is into data analytics, which is one of the growing fields. You're getting it? So times are changing. Be in touch with the times. And that's my message.
One last question, sir. How do you see the legal fraternity as a whole? Where is it heading towards?
Well, a lot of things are changing. A lot of things are changing. because change is constant. When I say that, long back when Christopher Columbus Langdon in Harvard Law School, he presented the idea of case method, that how law has to be taught. Believe me, a lot of people laughed on him and they said, "You what an idiot he is. What is he doing? This is not how law is taught." People never thought that that will become the norm of teaching, right? Similarly, when someone started open book tests, open book tests, 24-hour tests, where the question paper is given to you for 24 hours, you can go and sit in any part, you research and you write the paper. Similarly, when that was being done, a lot of people again had objections that what bullshit is happening. This is not how you test students. But look at the way things have changed. Look at the way now the very system of examination has been questioned, threatened, and has to be re examined given the pandemic situation. Now, institutions like CBSE, I literally shame them publicly that they could not come out with a measure of testing students because they still want students to rot learn. And believe me, this is all going to end. Pandemic has exposed everyone, and the open book test has become a success now, where a student is given the liberty to go ahead and think, sit in a library, research, come out with the original work. I again repeat, original work, not a copied work, because now you can even catch the copied content, right? And that is what is the need of the hour. Things are changing, even in, you can see, even in the field of law, in litigation, even in the field of corporate lawyering, things have changed. Now, there was a time when people were creating contracts sitting for hours. Now, there is a software where you just need to put info and it creates a contract for you. But there has to be manual intervention, right? There has to be manual intervention. So things will keep on changing. And that's where my message in my previous answer, I said, you have to keep on changing. Online teaching, never, there were professors who never thought about it. And I have seen them struggling in online, as in most of the students might have here also had experiences where some really good professors who are very good at teaching are struggling with the online things. So with any kind of a profession you are in, you have to be in touch with whatever is happening. That is the first golden rule which you have to do. Even in the field of law, you have to understand the libraries may be done away with the software. There can be one software which will club up the entire library and it will be accessible. The point is, are you using them? Are you in touch with them? Or are you someone for whom a mobile phone means only PUBG games, or else, whatever you are into? So, if you are into law, anything, a finger moves, you have to be vigilant about whatever is happening, and you may survive. There are people who say that lawyers will become extinct. That is untrue, if you ask me, because conflicts and difference of opinion, it's always been there. I mean, religion as a concept was born out of the difference of opinion. And if you ask me, from religion, law was born. If you have read the history of law properly, you'll know what I'm saying. So it's always going to be. Yeah.
Okay, so those were some super fabulous and amazing answers, sir. Thank you so much for that insight.
So we
And
have a hand raise, I guess.
yes, sir, Gurleen Seni has a question, and let's open the floor for
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
So, Gurleen, you wish to ask something?
Yeah, so good evening, sir. So actually, I want to ask the last point you mentioned that law is
Gureen,
going to.
I'm not able to hear you properly. Can you be a bit louder?
Yes, yes, sure. Just a sec. Now, sir, it's audible.
Prakhar, are you able to hear her?
I can hear her. I'll repeat the question.
Okay.
Huh.
So basically, I want to ask that, I have heard from many that law is going to simply exist in. Why are you taking law? This, that. Now only software will be doing that. Law is not. Basically, lawyer is not a good field for you. This, that. I wonder like how people think that the software which are replacing lawyers basically.
So basically, sir, she's talking about the dilemma that AI will take over the softwares will take over the legal profession in the coming years, and the entire fraternity will not be of that much use. If we talk about, basically, she's talking about your last point.
Great question, Gurleen. But let me tell you, this is something which naysayers will always be there. Okay. So it's not just with law, with every profession, it's the same. If you ask me about doctors, yes, it's happening, right? Earlier, there were around 8 surgeons who used to do a cardiac surgery, right? Now, there are 2 surgeons who are standing, and there is a robot machine which does the same for them. Engineers, they are the worst threatened. They are creating their own monsters, right? They are creating their own monsters by cutting across things and cutting across and making more and more facilities. So this would be there when you are when we talk about law. I want to be very specific about one thing. Law and lawyers will always be there because of one reason, that it's more human disputes. Whenever a dispute happens, there always be a manual intervention. Okay, because machines cannot sit and convince people. Okay? It's all about, in economic terms, if you ask me, there is something called as transaction cost. So I'll just explain you in terms of transaction cost. So Ola, Uber, right? Ola and Uber, what did they do? They cut the transaction cost. For example, there used to be a time when you want to catch a taxi, how difficult it was for you. You would go out to the road, you will try to chase taxi walas. If you have someone in your you may hire that person or book him priorly. Only then you would get a taxi. But today you are sitting at home and you're just pressing one button and you get a taxi booked, and he comes to your house on the designated time for which you already know what you have to pay. What has happened? The entire transaction cost of you going there has been cut. Swiggy and Zomato also have done the same. So there has been a AI which is working for you, right? Now this has been done. Even then there is manual intervention. There is a person who will come, who will take you away, and he'll do the same. Similarly, if you ask me for the field of law, something which is very, very important is, if you want to solve a dispute, a robot or an AI will always have its limitation, where manual intervention have to be there, where your research, where your contract, etc., will be made in minutes, but there has to be a person who, with his AI and EQ, both has to sit and set it up. And that is what I said. You have to update yourself. You have to keep on understanding the in and around things which are happening around you. You have to update yourself with the technology and the use of technology also. So I'll give you an example about PhD. The people who have done PhD, say 10 years back, they used to go to library, fetch the books, sit there, write down things, and then go and type. Now we are not going anywhere. There is a software called as Mendeley. There's a software called as LexisNexis. There are various portals on which we go. We have the books there. We just need to download it. And we can even search the page rather than reading the entire book or go through the index. We just need to type it and it's in front of them. So I just mean to say that manual intervention is something which can never be ruled out. And even those sci-fi movies which you might have seen, you would see that when we totally depend on AI or say the IT, it leads us to catastrophe. And that's what all the movies have a suggestion in them, that there is a issue which has happened and humanity has been wiped out because they relied more on AI. And humanity knows this. And there are checks and balances always. Elon Musk is someone who really believes that yes, these things can happen. But you should go and Google that his driverless cars are also creating a lot of ruckus. There was an accident which happened. There are so many issues because somewhere the machines would want a manual interference. Be it law, be it engineering, be it a doctor. Everyone is trying to make their life easy and cut the transaction cost. But at whose value? It is always going to be your intervention and your expertise, someone who's in touch with these things, who shall stand tall and say, okay, I'm in grip of the same, I can deliver it properly. I also heard, I guess, you saying that people say that this profession is, like this, that. They say it about every profession. They say it about engineers also, that life may he had nothing to do, so he did engineering. For doctors also, they say that they play with the life of humans. During pandemic, there were doctors who got bashed up. So every profession has its highs and lows. But no one would look at a successful person or a successful profession and say he's bad. They would say, out of jealousy, out of hatred, they may say. But everyone, when they're doing good, would say he's good. See, if you want to do something as a law, you have to do it like him. So Harish Salve, he got married very recently, right? At the age of, I guess, he's above 50, and he did it. Did someone accuse him of anything? He doesn't mind also, but even then, he's a successful guy. He doesn't care. He's a great lawyer, one of the greatest lawyers to have graced, our mother India. So that's how it goes.
Okay, sir. So, do we have any other question? Prerika has raised her hand.
Hi, good evening, sir. Thank you for the incredibly insightful session. First of all, it is so nice hearing you. Sir, one question I have, you mentioned that your mentors told you certain books that you could read to enhance your legal knowledge. Sir, if you could recommend us a few books.
Thank you, thank you. That is a great question. I should have referred to the books also. One of those book which I really treat as my Bible is by Nani Palkiwala. It's called as We the People. Okay, make sure when you're in the first year, you please go ahead and read it. Okay, We the People. Now, who is Nani Palkiwala? Believe me, he was a legend. We don't have Nani Palkiwalas, and the profession is not creating Nani Palkiwalas any longer. And that's the worst thing of the times that we live in. Why do I say this? Because Nani Palkiwala was a better Indian. He always said that there are two roles which you play. One, what you are, and the second is, as a citizen, what you are about to do for the country. Can you believe it? This legend of a man, Nani Palkiwala, he was a full-time employee at Tata, but Tata never stopped him from practicing law, because Tata believed that they do not want to rob off a good lawyer from the nation. He was the one who fought Indira Gandhi's case when her election was being challenged. Out of his own, he said, I'll fight the case for her. And he was fighting the case very well. Just when Indira Gandhi declared emergency, what did the legend do? He pulled off from the case and he said, you went against the constitution, I will never fight for you. I came on my own volition to fight for you, but now what you are doing is injustice. My ethics, for me, it's constitution which is supreme, and I stand by it. The legend, he was such a good lawyer and also a good economist. Whenever budget was declared, think about it. He would book at his own expense a small hotel, and he would invite people, and he would advise the people in Mumbai where you should invest, what you should do, which expense you should undertake, what savings you should do. And slowly that became so famous a session that from that small hotel room, an entire stadium in Mumbai, the D.Y. Patil Stadium, was booked for him to go and take the lecture. I think it was Brabon Stadium and not D.Y. Patil. He used to hold his budget lectures, all cost beared by him. And many people say that Bombay's entire capital and Bombay's entire economic structure came because he was the guy, he was the force behind it. Please read his book. Read books by Arun Shore. Okay, Arun Shore is an ex-BJP leader, but an exceptional author. He has written a lot of books about the parliamentary system in India. Please do read. There is another author, his name is Glanville Austin. Okay, Glanville Austin. Please do read his book, Indian Constitution, The Cornerstone. Okay, I don't remember the exact name, somehow I'm forgetting it, but that
The
book
cornerstone of the nation.
of the nation, yes. Glanville Austin, his book name is The Cornerstone of a Nation. Please read. No Indian author has explained Indian Constitution the way he has been able to. Then Ramchandra Guha also. He's a very great lawyer, but of late he has started giving out political bites. But many of his books, like India After Gandhi, etc., make a lot of sense, though not legally. But yes, he has described law in a very different thing. Then there is also authors like Dominic Lapierre, who's given us a totally different perspective about how India and Pakistan were divided in his great book called as India After Independence. Because That's how you also get to know the other side of the story. And we lawyers always have to think out of the box. This guy has given a great version about how India and Pakistan were divided. Now read J. Sai Deepak's latest book, India. I again forgot the name. So I read the books, I get the maximum juice out of it, but then I forget the title of the book. So read these books, okay? And then I'll share some more of mine. I have a list somewhere lying here, which I'll share with Prakhar, and please do read. But We the People is something you should read, and it's one of the best sellers in our country.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for that. Nida has a question, I guess.
Good evening, sir. My question is actually I want you to please please give some advice on how to improve our communication skills if you are an introvert person.
You're asking it to a person who was an introvert during his time. So yes, I can speak on that because I belong to a boys' school. Okay, I did my schooling from an all boys school, so I was very shy. Someone who would fall at the feet of a teacher the moment she would say that go and give a thought for the day or say read the news headlines. Also, I used to shiver at that thought. I was very shy. But believe me, law school changed me because all those opportunities which were given to me in forms of presentation, in form of conferences, they really changed me. At NLIU Bhopal, we have trimester system. So every 3 months, we had to present 5 papers. In the first year, we were also supposed to give seminar papers and prepare project reports on English. Can you believe it? We were to read a book and then come and present it. I used to be very irritated in the first trimester. That what is happening? Why do they want? And I was very shy. But slowly it started improving. How? Because, as I said, they were compelling me to do those things, but slowly I started taking pleasure in it. And things improved so much that in the first trimester, where my roll number was 44, I would go to roll number 47, 48, and 50 and beg that please go ahead and give the presentation before me because I'm shivering. When by the time I was in the second year and the last trimester, which was our sixth trimester, the rise in confidence was so much that I would go to roll number 18 and tell her that, madam, I need to go back home quick. So please give me the time so that I can present quickly and go back home. So that was confidence. But how did it come? It came with a lot of presentations, which we did. But again, one of my senior gave me a very good trick. He said, shame, the concept, is only in our own eyes. Now, we are the most ashamed towards ourselves. So he said, do one thing, stand in front of a life-size mirror and speak to yourself. Look into your own eyes and speak. And see that you look like any other human, right? And then he used to make me sit in his sessions. He said, today, room number 21, my presentation is come. And then he used to say, see, I'm unmoved. I'm just talking. I'm not doing anything else. I know my topic inside out. I know what I'm going to read. I'm just going to go and talk. The professor is going to ask me questions. I'm just going to answer the way I'm talking to you. The moment you start taking things seriously and become very conscious about your image or what you are done. Do away with that. Become a better person and become someone who thinks less about himself. We introverts have a problem, Nida. We are too much into ourselves. We think a lot about what others are thinking about us. But believe me, that's not how life works. It's not how it goes. It's very simple. You have to be natural. That is the first lesson. And when you go and stand in front of your class and you're giving a presentation, you have to accept it. And you have to say that, let me be me. Let me go ahead and just talk. So don't carry paper, don't do anything. Just go there, have some points in your mind and present it. You may carry a PPT for references, but just talk about it. And believe me, you do it once, you do it twice, thrice. By the time you are on the fifth or sixth time, you start feeling that confidence. And then it's a smooth sail, believe me. Then, people have to stop you. So you see me, Prakhar, poor thing, he's asking me one question, which can be answered in 2 lines, but I'm taking an entire para to answer it. That's what you will become, because when you start talking, there is no script. I do not have any script here. I just talked out of my heart. And that is what you need to do, Nida. First of all, like I said, talk to yourself. Have that life size mirror in front of you. Look into your own eyes and try to talk. Initially, you'll feel shame. You'll feel, what am I doing? But slowly, that is going to go. And when slowly that feeling is going to move ahead, you'll feel that you're better, you're growing, and you're just being yourself. And that is the best thing that you need to do. Think about those actors, man. Those great actors of Hollywood. In Bollywood, it's like you know what acting is all about. But how they get into a character and how they are able to play, just feel that. There are actors like Al Pacino, etc., who get into the character, and they play it, and they be in that character till the movie is over. That is the feel that you need to take. You have to be yourself. So first encounter which you have to do is of yourself. You have to go and start speaking to yourself. Once that is done, everything is a smooth sail then. Okay? I hope that answers you and may help you in becoming, not, you can be introvert still, but you can be someone who can speak a lot. And that won't be a problem. And communication skill, you should listen to a lot of interviews of good lawyers, great people who are good at speaking, like Shashi Tharoor. J. Sai Deepak is one exceptional speaker. I attended a lecture by him 3 months back in this very campus. The clarity of thought he has is too good. Listen to them and try to adapt and try to make sure that you are able to speak like them. And that increases your confidence slowly inside yourself. I hope that helps.